Alright, okay, so hello dears. hello. Ayan. So welcome now to the third part, no? The third video of our lecture on the preparation of fecal smears. Alright, so medyo marami-rami na tayong nachikahan. Alright, so we're done with the first two types. You have the direct fecal smear or direct wet mount, DFS, and your D'Antoni's method. So these two usually are types of wet mounts, okay? Now, the remaining two are not necessarily wet mounts, but are still fecal smears, okay? All right. And before I forget, guys, for the first two, direct fecal smear and D'Antoni's method, I prepared a different PowerPoint, no? And a different lectures na naman on the different possible parasites that we can see in the DFS, all right? And in our fecal smears, actually. And on that lecture, we're going to focus more on the helminths, okay? The ova that we can see, all right? And maybe larva. Because we have discussed, I won't be discussing the protozoa na there, intestinal protozoa that can be seen in your fecal smears, because we have discussed some of the medically important lang yun na protozoa in the hay infusion natin na lecture, all right? And again, you'll discuss that in your lecture naman. So, what I'm going to do lang is supplementary, all right? Supplementary. So that in a way, you'll be introduced now, okay, to these different parasites, so that by the time that Ma'am Bernal, Ma'am B, the queen, discusses these parasites, then you already have an idea. Para di na mo ma-shooked. Okay? I hope you're okay with that. All right? Okay. Ayan. So, we'll start first with the Cato thick. All right. So, Ganong Cato, no? Cato. Okay? Because it's named after the discoverer. We have Cato and Miura in 1954. They were first to introduce a new method known as the cellophane thick smear. So that's the other name of Cato thick, guys. Cellophane thick smear. Why? Because it uses... Okay, before that, yeah. So cellophane thick smear. That's the other name of Cato thick. All right? It was originally used for field surveys for helminth infections. So when you say field surveys, mass testing. Wala pa ring mass testing ngayon. Yes, I don't know, 1 year na. Charot. Mass testing or mass survey, field surveys of helminth infections in a large group of population. Example, large population. Example, like communities, okay? For research purposes, usually. So, field surveys, all right? Now, why is it named cellophane thick smear? It's because the amount of stool that you use is much larger compared to our previous wet mount techniques, all right? A larger amount of sample, and aside from that, we use a cellophane, all right? Cellophane, like cellophane, the plastic cellophane that we use for mga offertories sa church, mga ganun, or mga decorations sa mga, mga science math, mga ganun. So cellophane, I hope you get the picture, all right? Okay, and that serves as our cover slip. So we don't use the glass cover slips, all right? And after further modifications, the Cato thick technique was adopted in control programs in Japan in 1960. Okay, all right. So that's the history in a way, brief history. And what do we use it for? It's for helminths, especially those with thick shells. Okay, Ascaris and Trichuris, and not for protozoa, because again, we cannot see the protozoa. And the reagents also kill the protozoa, all right? So we use that primarily for helminths, especially those with thick shells like Ascaris and Trichuris. So this is an example of your Cato thick smear. So these mga green guys, this is your cellophane, okay? All right, so you'll know why is it green. Okay, kay cost party, charot lang. All right, okay. For the materials, these are the materials needed. So as you can see, it's much more marami. It's much more marami. Yeah, mas marami siya. Very notable, there is the pre-treated cellophane. So the purpose of the cellophane, you treat it with glycerin or glycerin, a 3% malachite green solution, and distilled water. Okay, now what's the purpose of glycerin? Your glycerin serves as your clearing agent, okay? When you say clearing agent, guys, the glycerin works as a clearing agent. So meaning, iyahang i-clear, iyahang i-lyse ang mga other materials found in your stool that could serve as your artifacts or confusers. So iyang i-clear ang imuhang microscopic field or field of observation. Why? Because again, these artifacts or confusers can make your examination difficult. So that's the purpose of glycerin. That's the purpose of glycerin, a clearing agent. So when you say clearing agent, it clears, no? It eliminates the other unwanted confuser artifacts found in your stool, like mga other cells, mucus, whatever. Alright? So that what is left na lang are the parasite eggs. Okay? So, di ba, mas easy na lang to identify and to examine because there are no other sagabal pa in a way, or there are no other artifacts that could confuse you. Alright? Okay, that's the purpose of glycerin. Now, the purpose of 3% malachite green is just to give a green background. There's a green background in your microscopic field to aid, alright, or to protect your eyes, protect the eyes from the brightness, okay? From the brightness of the microscope, alright? That's the purpose of your malachite green solution. And if you don't have a malachite green solution, the alternative is a green cellophane. Ayan. So as you can, in our class, yes, what we use is a green cellophane. We don't have the malachite green. Okay? So green cellophane. So again, it's still the same. It serves as a purpose, green background. Again, protect the eyes from the brightness of the microscope while examining. Alright? Okay, so that's the purpose of our materials. Alright, now we go now to the procedure. So how is it performed? First one is, of course, we label the slide. And what we do is we place approximately 50 to 60 mg of stool, the size of a soybean. So mura siya, ano may itsura ng soybean? Soybean, parang size of a mongo bean. Tama ba? Basta, can you visualize na lang, soybean like that. So 50 to 60 milligrams. So it's much larger compared to our DFS na 2 mg lang, di ba? Alright, and we put that at the center of the glass slide. And once we put it on the center of the glass slide, we then put the cellophane on top of it. All right. So here's a rough picture. Ayan. So this is this is not the real appearance, guys. This is just like, again, a rough representation of what's happening in the real lab activity. Okay. So this is now the 50 to 60 milligrams of your stool, the size of a soybean. You add now the green cellophane. Okay, or yeah, the pre-treated cellophane over on top of it. Okay, all right. And what it does now is, of course, it now looks like that. So the cellophane is now covering your stool. Okay, or your size of the soybean, size of a stool. All right. The next thing we do is we use a rubber stopper and we press, okay, on top of this to spread the stool sample. All right, evenly to the circumference of the stopper. So example, if the stopper, yung circumference is like that, no, yung appearance, so we also press the stool, okay, to achieve this size. Okay? Alright, ayan. And again, make sure that the stool will not spread beyond. Okay? It will not go beyond the cellophane cover. So here's again a rough representation of the procedure, diba? Again, the cellophane is covering the stool, alright? We use a rubber stopper and then ayan. So we press, okay? We press until it now forms, ayan. So again, the circumference of the rubber stopper, meaning diri sa ilalom, the rubber stopper, circumference. So if the size again is like this, then we have to make sure, or we need to achieve this size in our stool, all right? And that's the procedure. Okay, all right. So next is we leave this prepared slide at room temperature for 10 to 20 minutes so that the glycerin will now act, okay, will clear the area of our examination. And then finally, we examine using the LPO and then to HPO. But again, make sure that we don't allow the slides to stand for too long, greater than 1 hour, because it causes drying, and the shells of your hookworm, because it's thin, will dissolve in the glycerin solution. Okay? Alright, so that's for Cellophane Smear. I hope na gets lang. Alright, ayan. So, again, report the results as we count the number of eggs pa rin using our counter. Alright? Or per smear. So, example, 50 eggs of trichuris per smear. Okay? Don't forget the per smear. Alright, ayan. Or in pluses, meaning if it's too much, like plus. Okay? Alright, but usually we count lang. Alright, if present. And if negative, no ova seen. Okay. So here's an example of a picture. Trichuris egg in a Cellophane Smear, and your Ascaris egg also in the Cellophane Smear. So as you can see, diba, the eggs are much more clearer, much clearer, alright? And there are not much any parang confusers or artifacts already. So again, the examination will be much easier. Alright? Okay, that's for the Cellophane Smear. Okay. And for the last type or last method of preparation is the Cato-Cats. So by the name itself, Cato-Thick, Cato-Cats, so it's still following the procedure of the Cato-Thick, pero there's just some modifications. Okay, all right. Your Cato-Cats technique, we perform this usually for assessing the intensity of infection in schistosomiasis and other soil-transmitted helminthiasis like ascariasis, trichuriasis, and hookworm infection. So it's for your helminths. So we need to assess the intensity, meaning how severe is the infection? How severe is the ascariasis in the patient? How severe is the schistosomiasis in the patient? So it's a quantitative measurement. So it's not only counting using the tally counter. We count the eggs, but we also solve. Okay, parang we have a solving or computation to perform here. Okay, because again we want to determine intensity, like how grabe is the infection ba? Ganun. Ang konyo mo naman, Mark. Okay, all right, ayan. And consistency of the stool will determine the sensitivity of the test because it can only be performed on fresh stools with consistency of soft to formed, okay? And it cannot be performed on liquid preserved samples, all right? So fresh, okay? Fresh stool samples, soft to formed ang consistency. And this is the preparation of our Cato-Cats. So mas marami, okay? All right, ayan. So again, we go now to the materials. So for materials, we'll just look at the color red one. These are just the additional materials. Because again, by the name itself, it's Cato-Cats. So it's still following the procedure of the Cato-Thick with just a modification in the procedure. Okay, so the red ones are the added materials. So you have a wire mesh or a layer of gauze, okay, template, ayan, and a Wbc counter. Okay, so the Wbc counter is a type of a counter, pero it's much bigger. Okay, that we use that for WBC count. Okay, when we find the number of neutrophils, lymphocytes, monocytes per per peripheral smear. Okay, all right. So we can use also the WBC counter. So the same for the purpose of counting parasites this time. Okay, all right. But you can also use tally counter. But I think there are limitations sa tally counter on how much it can count because some of our samples in our Cato-Cats, it can reach to 50,000, 10,000 eggs, okay? So, depending on the intensity, again, of the infection. Again, that's the main purpose of your Cato-Cats. All right, ayan. So, we go now to the procedure. All right. So, first is, again, we label a slide, but this time, before adding the stool sample, we position first a template on the center of a slide. Ayan. So, still the same slide, but this time we use a template. Ayan. Now, the template, again, we'll show this in the video because right now, there's no templates AK, so I cannot show you this time. But the template is made out of cardboard or pwede ding plastic, and there's a center, parang buslot, no? There is a hole at the center, okay? All right, ayan. That's the hole there, okay? This hole, all right? That's the template. Now, the next procedure is we place the sample, your stool sample, on the stool container muna. All right? On the stool container muna. And what we do is we use the wire mesh, okay, or the gauze to screen. So, ato siyang ipaagi. All right? So, example, this is the stool sample, okay, and then wire mesh. So, ato siya siyang i-press, strain, so that the stool sample will be filtered in a way, and there will be the fecal sample that remains on the wire net, okay, will now serve as your source of sample, okay, and that is what we're going to put at the center of the template. All right, so ayan, so for visualization purposes, so you have the stool there on your container, okay, on the container, fecal sample, and then wire mesh. I hope na visualize lang ang wire mesh, no, para siyang di siya barbed wire. Chicken wire like that, pero smaller ang circles or ang holes, all right? And what we do is, again, ato siyang strain or press, okay? And of course, when we let the wire mesh pass through the stool, there will be stool that will remain on the surface of the wire mesh. And using an applicator stick, this is now the stool that we use. So we scrape that off, okay? And until we get the sample, all right? And this sample, di ba, we then use the sample to fill up the hole. All right, and then we flatten the top level, all right? And then we get the card and the template, and then there is now the fixed amount of stool in the form of a circle that will remain, all right? And then we then put the pre-treated cellophane over the circle. So again, for visualization purposes, so that's the template, your stool sample. Ayan, so you put it on the center of the circle, okay? So like you're putting stool on the circle. And then of course, you clean no, the top of this and at the sides because there are stool that will stick to that. So you flatten. So imong scrape, you scrape also the surface of the template, all right, so that you will have this perfect circle, all right? Okay. And the next part, we remove the template, okay, so that you will leave this circle na lang of stool. And then of course, we then add the cellophane and then following the procedure na of your kato thick. Sorry, wala na ako na change. All right. So rubber stopper, still the same. All right. And then until it reaches that. So mas spread siya. And then, still the same procedure, leave the prepared slide. And you examine the preparation. All right. But this time, a difference now is we then report the presence of parasites using this formula. So the number of eggs per parasite per gram feces is the number of eggs of parasite counted over 43 milligrams times 1,000 milligrams per grams. Because we want to determine per grams. That is why we multiply by 1,000 para makancel ang milligrams. Okay? All right. Now, the 43 there, guys, is constant because the template, the circle, no, is able to measure about 43 milligram of stool sample. So the stool that was remained in the circle using the template, that's equivalent to 43 milligrams. Okay? All right. So example, so example, you discovered now, let's say, 500 eggs of parasite, eggs of ascaris. Ayan. So using your tally counter or Wbc counter. So we divided by 43 milligrams times 1,000 milligrams. So that's equivalent to, oh my gosh, Mark, yes. That's it, guys. So ano na, 500 over 43. Ayan, 11.62 times 1,000. Ayan. So that's equivalent to 11,627. 627 eggs of parasite per gram of feces. Ayan. So as you can see, it gives you already parang an overview, a glimpse as to how many good ang eggs that are found in the feces, okay, in the stool sample or in one feces or in the feces of your patient. All right, so it's much more telling, okay, of the intensity good of the infection of the patient with this particular parasite. Okay, all right. Now we have a different counting technique known as your stall egg counting technique. Now we use this if our stool samples, the fresh stool samples, is liquid in nature. Okay, all right. So the first thing that we do is we aspirate or place 0.1 N normal NaOH to 56 ml in the stall flask. So the stall flask, I cannot see a picture, but I believe that's still an Erlen Mayer. Ay, my gosh. Mark, yes. Erlen Mayer. Ayan. So the Erlen Mayer flask or stall flask, it has labels. So my 56 ml and then 60 ml. Ayan. So you add here 0.1 normal of NaOH. And then you add your liquid specimens, two specimens, up to the 60 ml mark. Okay, then you add 6 to 8 glass beads, okay, stopper, and then you shake vigorously. Then you allow to stand for 12 to 24 hours. The purpose of the beads is to bungkag, all right, or to break up the stool sample, all right, if there are solid clumps there, all right, and then let it stand for 12 to 24 hours. Again, for clearing purposes, so that again you will visualize the eggs much clearer. All right? Okay. Now, the second part is you withdraw 0.15 ml using a stall pipette. So, para siyang pasture pipette. You mount on the slide, cover with the cover slip, and count of the parasite seen. For the computation, it's very simple lang. So, number of eggs counted from the 0.15 ml volume is equal to the number of eggs counted. So, example, you saw 50 eggs parasite, okay, over 0.01. So, di ba? So, example, like that. That's for example lang, ascaris. Okay. All right. And 0.01 ml feces, where did we get that? Okay. So, it's derived from 60, which is, di ba, until the 60 ml mark, ang feces, minus 56 ml, which is the NaOH, kung asan siya gikan, times 0.15 ml, since you withdraw 0.15 ml, over the total volume, or which is 60 ml. Okay? All right. And that's equivalent to 0.01 ml. So your answer now is eggs per ml of feces. All right? All right. But to convert that to per ml pala, because again, that's 0.15 ml raman, you multiply by 100. Okay? All right. So you can have a final unit of eggs per ml of feces. So as you can see, per ml, so stall egg. But for cat o cats, di ba, it's eggs per gram. Di ba? All right. Okay. Now, using this information, we can now calculate, no? But again, if there are different consistencies for stall egg, we use correction count. Hard to form, we multiply the final answer, eggs per ml, by 1, mushy stool by 2, mushy diarrheic 3, and finally for diarrheic 4. All right. And since for interpretation, each adult female ascaris produce an average of 2,000 eggs per ml of feces, and for trichuris and hookworm, 45 eggs per ml of feces. So using these interpretations, no, we then can calculate the worm burden. All right. So example, the number of female ascaris worms, number of eggs counted per ml of feces, the one that we solve using stall egg, and over the number of eggs produced per female worm. So example, this time, 2,000 eggs. All right? So we can then calculate the number of worms. Okay? All right. So again, using the information that we got from stall egg counting, no, or our stall results, we then can calculate the worm burden. So when we say worm burden, it's the number of worms that can be found that are probably present, or that are present in the stool or in the patient, that could have contributed to the number of eggs. All right? So example, again, balik tayo na example sa formula sa imong stall. Yes, Mark. Diba? The number of... Ay, sorry. Ba yan? Oh my gosh. The number... Ang layo. Yes! Okay. All right. Sorry, guys. No. Okay. All right. Ay, joke. Ayan. So again, this formula. So let's say ascaris mo na count. So from mag-aspirate mo sa 0.15 ml, you visualize or examine under the microscope, and then you counted, let's say, 50 eggs, pares kanina. Oh my gosh! 50 eggs of ascaris. Okay. So 50 eggs over 0.01 ml of feces, that's equivalent to 5,000 eggs per ml, eggs of ascaris per ml of feces. Okay? All right. Now, let's say you have other parasites that you've seen. Like, example, you see trichuris or hookworm. Then you solve separately. So, you solve for trichuris using this formula, the number of eggs that you have counted in trichuris per 0.01 ml. And then hookworm also. You do the same. All right? So, it's per type of parasite that you see. Okay? All right. Now, using this value, 5,000, okay? So, to calculate the worm burden, okay, so the number of eggs per ml of feces, 5,000, oh my gosh, sorry guys, 5,000 ml per ml feces, okay, of eggs, over the number of eggs produced per female worm, which is, since ascaris man, 2,000 eggs per ml feces. Ayan. So, your units will be cancelled out. So, you're left with 5,000 divided by 2,000 is 2.5. Alright? Or that's equivalent to 3. Meaning, there are 3 female ascaris worms. And since the male worms will make half of the worm burden, meaning, kung unsay number sa, total number of worms there, half ana kay men or male. So, the number of female worms, to determine the total or approximate worm burden, the number of female worms, these are the female, you multiply this by 2, and that's now the total worm burden. Because again, one half sa total is comprising the male, or is composed of the male worms, all right? So therefore, since 1/2 man, so you already know the number of female worms, so 1/2 man ang male, so you multiply that by 2, all right, to arrive at the total, okay? So meaning, 1/2 pod sa 6 is also 3 din ang 3 male worms are also found, okay? All right. So, but what you're looking for is the total man, so you multiply by 2 the total number of female Ascaris worms, all right? So, you can say then that there are about 6 Ascaris worms, approximate 6 worms in the patient that are contributing to the release of eggs, okay? All right, ayan. That's for Ascaris. But again, if you have hookworm or whipworm or trichuris, then you use this 45 eggs per ml of feces, all right? But again, this tall egg counting technique, guys, I have not experienced this in the lab. Again, I'm not sure if it's still routinely performed in the hospital laboratories or other laboratories, but for hospital laboratories, again, that I've experienced, wala. So maybe these are for research purposes, academic purposes, again, or yeah, in other laboratories like reference laboratories, research laboratories, all right? So that's, again, another way of counting. All right. Now, for the interpretation of egg counts, we follow what we call the WHO classification of the intensity of infections with soil-transmitted Helminths, lung, and schistosoma. And we have this table, ayan. So as you can see, EPG, it means eggs per gram of stool. So since it's eggs per gram of stool, this interpretation or this table, we use that for catocats. Okay? Please take note. We use that for catocats. All right. So let's say our example a while ago, ayan, let's say our example a while ago is 11,000, di ba? 11,627 eggs per gram, eggs of Ascaris. Ayan, Ascaris ba yun? Tama ba? Or Trichuris? Ascaris ata? I forgot. Okay, basta. Let's say Ascaris na lang. 11,627 eggs. Now, we look at the table. Asa masulod? Okay? Or where does 11,627 where can we see it? In the range, all right? So, it's in your moderate intensity. So, meaning, moderate intensity ang infection sa patient of Ascaris. Okay? All right. Now, how do we remember? So, 1,000 to 4,999, as you can see, that's the light. So, starting with moderate, you add 1 to the pinaka-last of your light intensity. That's the start of your moderate intensity. Diba? So, 5,000, 1,000, 2,000, and 100. And then, moderate intensity, as you can see, Ascaris ang pinakamarami until 49,000, okay? And then 9,000, 3,999, and 399. And for heavy intensity, you again add 1, okay, number 1, here, 1 to each, and that's the start of your heavy intensity. Greater than equal to 50,000, 10,000, 4,000, and 400. Okay? So again, this is the WHO table. All right? So please memorize, familiarize. Okay? So I think you have your own ways now on memorizing this. Okay. All right. Now for the correlation of egg count with treatment, for trichuris, about 30,000 eggs per gram of feces indicate presence of several hundred worms, so maraming worms, and may cause definite symptoms. If it's 30,000 eggs, so trichuris, yeah, heavy intensity, okay, all right? And for hookworm, 2,500 to 5,000, so 2,500, so moderate to heavy intensity, it can cause clinically significant infection. So the patient is experiencing symptoms na, all right, okay. And lastly is, of course, why do we need for egg counts? Because this can help us monitor, okay, the effectiveness of treatment to any of the Helminth infection found here, all right? Because we can perform several egg counts, okay, every time. So example, a patient is taking a treatment for this, for Ascaris, for this time. You have an egg count for this time, okay? And then after how many weeks, you then perform an egg count, okay? Catocats ba? All right. And then you compare, okay, the number of eggs from before treatment and after treatment. And then you look at the intensity. Is it light already? Is it moderate, heavy? So yung goal natin is, of course, pagam yun. We decrease the number of the eggs that can be seen. Because that could indicate that the treatment is a success or is going to be successful. All right? Okay, ayan. So that's the purpose. Again, we use this table, guys, ha, kay eggs per gram man. We use that for catocats. Okay? So, ang stall egg is usually for worm burden. Okay? That's according to the manual of Ma'am Bernal. Okay? So I followed the procedure there. All right? Okay, and that ends our discussion on the preparation of fecal smears, guys. No, again, quite a lot. Those are 3 activities na in one lecture. All right, so I just combined all because again, they have quite similar procedures and they have the same purpose. All right, so again, that is the next step. These activities are the next step after after examining our stool samples macroscopically. We then go to the microscopic examination, and this is it. All right? Okay, ayan. So, again, I hope na gets lang. I hope my explanations were quite clear, although na ako yung mga sabaw, lutaw na moments because again, medyo I lack sleep today. Alright, kaya ako nang gipulawan. Alright, and medyo may mga pinagdadaanan din na physical illness. But anyway, I hope na gets lang. I hope I was able to impart or deliver the topics properly. Alright? Again, the next lecture, guys, is we're going now to discuss the different parasites that we can see from fecal smears, especially from your direct wet mouth. Okay? Because again, you'll have that in the internship and when you also be medtechs in the future. So we go now to the different eggs that we can see, all right? Again, focusing more on the helminths, okay? Focusing more on the worms, all right? From nematodes to cestodes. Because again, I want to make sure that you identify the eggs, okay? But we will not discuss all of the helminths, just those that can be seen from fecal smears, okay? So mostly mga intestinal nematodes, trematodes, and cestodes. Okay? Alright, ayan. So I hope na-explain na ako ni properly. Alright? And I'll see you in the next pre-recorded lecture, guys. If you have any questions, clarifications, again, feel free to chat me or in our group chat. Alright? So I hope, again, you understood and you appreciated this topic, especially katong mga animations na ako, guys. It's not easy pala, but yes, I'm proud of myself for being able to, make that. All right. So thank you, dears. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope na gets lang. Again, I'll see you in our next pre-recorded lecture. Have a great day and keep safe.